Fewer cars have been as much anticipated as the Volkswagen ID.3. Where other German car makers have dipped their toes in electric waters with luxury models, Volkswagen went for the motherlode with a mainstream car for the masses. Volkswagen does mean people's car after all. But with the first version of the ID.3 there was a problem. It was only £5 cheaper than a Tesla Model 3, which isn't exactly working class money. Some people don't like the way the ID.3 looks, but we think it's rather striking, particularly in white. It looks like a VW Golf and Nissan Leaf had a child and took mostly the best bits from each. It's fair to say that this is the electric Golf because the length and width are almost exactly the same, and it's in the same compact hatchback class. In fact, that's why it's called 3. It's the third generation of VW's people's car after the Beetle and Golf. However, if you compared the front of a Golf with the ID.3 side by side, you'd notice that the bonnet is much shorter on the electric car. That's because the ID.3 is VW's first vehicle based on the MEB platform, which is electric only, so there's no need to leave room under the bonnet for a fossil fuel engine in potential non-electric models. The electric components take up less space, so VW claims the ID.3 has the same wheelbase as a Passat. In reality, it's about 15 centimetres longer than a Golf 8, but that makes a difference where interior cabin space is concerned. The ID.3 we have here is the first edition Pro Power, which comes with a bunch of extras. In particular, you get these attractive 19-inch alloys. You also get strategic first edition logos to show you were an early adopter. This version was technically just for those who signed up early, but there are now 7 different trim levels to choose from, ready for delivery in early 2021. All but the top version of the ID.3 have 18-inch steel wheels as standard, with only the Max offering the 19-inch wheels of this first edition. But where all other ID.3s, including the first edition, have a 58 kWh Pro Performance battery, the Tour has a 77 kWh Pro S battery. All cars have a 204 PS rear-wheel drive motor, however. You can specify 19-inch or even 20-inch wheels for any type for an extra fee. There are various silver, white, blue and grey colours available for £480 or £620 extra. This car is in Glacier White, but Moonstone Grey is a no-cost option. But only choose this if you want your car to look like a battleship. The keyless entry system is pretty slick, maybe not quite the level of a Model X, but you just walk up, pull the handle, and in you get. The obvious comparison with the latest Golf 8 continues inside. The longer wheelbase gives you extra legroom, but it's also 10 centimetres taller than a Golf 8, which gives you lots of extra headroom. If I was over 6 foot, this would still be fine. This is an EV aimed at people who want to save the planet, so there's no sign of leather inside. Instead, you get this microfleece upholstery called Flow Art Velour. The front seats are heated, but it's a huge surprise that they are mechanically adjusted. When you realise how much tech is available in the rest of the car, it's a shock not to have electrically adjusted seats. But at least the steering wheel is heated, as standard across the entire range. The front seats are comfortable enough, but without electronic adjustment, you might take a few tweaks to get it just right. Now we're going to talk about the central console. So you've got these 2 cup holders at the front. You've got this area which has a space for your phone, which supposedly is wireless charging. And then if you open up this cubby, you've got a couple of compartments with a removable bit here, so you can change it, and a couple of USB-C ports. And there's an adapter, so you can plug in a phone with a different type of connection to USB-C. And lastly, if you do own a pair of gloves, you'll be glad to see that there is a glove compartment, although you can also see that it's probably only enough space for an actual pair of gloves. And the rear has just as much space as the front. You've got plenty of knee room and you've got lots of headroom, so a taller occupant will be fine. You have this central seat here, which we think is a little bit wider than, for example, the Kia e-Niro, would still probably not be that comfortable for an adult occupant over a long journey. You do get this armrest that comes down, which is quite nice, and a couple of cup holders. You get a couple of USB-C ports for charging phones in the back, but no air conditioning for the rear occupants. However, you do get our beloved magazine holders in the back of the seats. There are ISOFIX points for the 2 outer seats in the rear. There's also ISOFIX points for the front passenger seat as well. The boot is also decently sized. As standard, this is 385 litres, which is a little bit larger than a Golf 8. You also get, under here, there is a little compartment which you could possibly store a cable in, but it's obviously there for some emergency kit. A nice feature that you might appreciate is this, if I can get it to work properly, which is great for putting some planks of wood in, maybe a Christmas tree, a pogo stick if you're carrying that. If you remove the rear parcel shelf, you've got a opportunity to expand things with the usual 40-60 arrangement, and that expands out to 1,267 litres, which again is a little bit larger than a Golf A, but less than, for example, the Kia e-Niro. You can see a slight step there, which isn't ideal, but this is still a decently sized boot for carrying large amounts of cargo. We also like the fact that you've actually got a 12-volt supply here, so if you want to stick a fridge in the back for taking that moe for that picnic, then you can do that. Up the top here you'll see the emergency triangle that you can pull out, which is a requirement for all German cars. One thing VW has got right is the range. Although this car only has a 58 kilowatt hour battery, Volkswagen's used it very economically to get 260 miles of WLTP range. Obviously this isn't where the battery is, this is just all the other electronics. With a 14p per kilowatt hour electricity service, this car's pretty cheap at 3.1p per mile. You get the standard CCS charger in the place where you'd expect to have a petrol filler cap, and of course you get AC and DC charging. On a 7 kilowatt AC charger it takes 9.5 hours to charge, although this car does also support 11 kilowatts. It also supports 100 kilowatt DC, which is a great feature. That enables it to put on 180 miles or 80% in just 35 minutes, so it's very viable for long journeys. With the first edition we have here, Volkswagen also bundled a subscription to its WeCharge network, which allowed 2,000 kilowatt hours, 1 year, or 500 quid's worth of charging, whichever one came first. With the 77 kilowatt hour Pro S battery in the Tour version, you get a much longer 336 miles of WLTP range, but obviously that takes quite a bit longer to charge as well. So once you sit inside the ID.3, you'll notice that the interior borrows a lot from other cars, and they've taken all the good bits. For example, to start the car, no fiddling around with the start-stop button, you just press the brake pedal and on everything goes. However, there is this start-stop button on some models, although you don't actually need to use it. We rather like the fact that the brake pedal is a pause button and the accelerator is a play button. The controls are a halfway house between the minimalism of a Tesla and the busyness of a regular car dashboard. The membrane buttons will disappoint those looking for a solid traditional German interior, but we like the fact that there are dedicated buttons for key functions rather than expecting everything to be adjusted through a touchscreen. The rotating drive selector on the right here is reminiscent of the BMW i3, but pretty logical and easy to get to grips with. You rotate down for reverse, up for drive, and up again for extra regen braking, and push the P button on the end for park. There's no separate electronic parking brake, another feature of other EVs that we don't see the point of and don't miss in the ID.3. There's a button on the dashboard for choosing between Eco, Normal and Sport modes, and unlike some EVs, the ID.3 stays in the mode you've chosen next time you start the car. There's a 5.3-inch panel behind the steering wheel that makes no pretense towards mimicking traditional dashboard instrumentation, but information is clear and functional. Air conditioning has 2 zones, but this is only an option in some trim levels and not the entry-level Life. One of the things that we particularly like about the way VW has launched the ID.3 is that all of the models get this 10-inch display, and you can see it does cool things like you saw the text pop up there as my hand went close. And this is the sat nav. You can look at the map, you can search for destinations. It's all pretty logical and fully touch screened. This display is also, as you saw earlier, for the climate control. You can choose that one there, you can get the parking assistance up. You can also select how the IQ Drive assistance modes work, and of course we talked about the modes being available from this menu as well. We rather like the fact that the sat-nav actually shows the kilowattage of the various chargers in the local area. So this is the default driving screen for the ID.3's 10-inch multimedia display. You can see it has the sat-nav, it has a few other buttons. You can press this to get some status of your vehicle, which gives you stuff like data about the vehicle's driving, tyre pressure, mileage, some controls for the vehicle, various locations which don't appear to be available yet, and particularly useful, a view of charging. So you can see we've got 61% left here. If you press this button again, you get back to the default screen. If you have a telephone attached, you can at least make an SOS call, but you could actually make a call if you had your phone paired. There's control of the radio as well. However, if you press it one more time, you get to this menu, which is where you can choose things like, you can go and get a bit more detail of the menu, you can choose your media, you can set up some favorites, and then there's again the telephone, which I mentioned before, full navigation screen where you can search for a location by postcode, which is always something welcome, and then again another access to the vehicle screen that we saw before, and you can adjust the sound. So you can actually move, this is quite cool, you can actually move whether the sound is left, right within the passenger and driver, the focus, adjust bass, mid-range and treble, and of course the overall volume, although of course there are controls down here for adjusting that and on the steering wheel. Then there's the driver assist functions, which of course are only available when you're driving, so we're not driving right now because that would be wrong while we're using this. You can choose background colours, which is kind of funky, and some settings. And you can scroll through the screens like this as well, which is also quite useful. With just 204 PS, the ID.3 is no Tesla beater, but all versions with a smaller 58 kilowatt hour battery can hit 62 miles per hour in 7.3 seconds. Putting that in perspective, that is faster than the rather cheeky Vauxhall Corsa E. The larger, heavier 77 kilowatt hour Tour Pro S battery means that that model takes 7.9 seconds to hit 62 miles per hour. But the Pro Performance cars are fast enough and a little quicker than most EVs that aren't Teslas. There is of course no torque steer because all the VW ID.3s are rear wheel drive like the Honda E. Although the ID.3 accelerates like a GTI, it is a 1.8 ton car, so you do feel this when you're going around bendy A-road corners. However, as this is a dedicated electric vehicle platform, all the heavy batteries are beneath the floor plan of the car, which means that it's very stable and balanced when you're going around corners. There's neither under nor oversteer, the car just sits flat. It's also very composed at motorway speeds, so with that 260 mile range, this car will be great. Overall, the ID.3 fulfills its Golf heritage, giving you a pleasant drive whether you're navigating city streets, going through twisty A-roads, or strolling along at 70 miles per hour, obviously, on a motorway. Let's turn to safety. As we recently reported in WhichEV, the ID.3 just received its 5-star rating in the Euro NCAP safety test. It even has an airbag here between front passengers to prevent head collisions when you have a side impact. Adaptive cruise control is standard across all models, as is lane assist. This version of the car has forward collision warning and blind spot detection, but that's an option in some of the other models. You can also get other assistance features, but that depends on the model you choose. When VW announced the ID.3, we were really excited that the German giant had got its act together. But then we heard about the price of this first edition, which is a little over £35,000, including the plug-in grant. That isn't extortionate by EV standards, but isn't exactly people's car pricing. It felt like joining the crowd rather than changing the game. But just a few weeks ago, VW launched further models in the range, including the sub £30,000 Life model. Amazingly, this still includes luxury features like heated seats, heated steering wheel, the 10-inch LCD display, and adaptive cruise control. Most importantly, it still has a 204 PS motor, 260 mile range, and can hit 62 miles per hour in 7.3 seconds. Yes, you can get the Renault Zoe for £3,000 less, but the ID.3 is a much more capable car. The models above the Life add feature packs and range in price up to a hefty £38,000, including the plug-in grant. The longer range Tour version is £1,000 more at a little over £39,000. Although we're basing our review on this first edition model, most buyers will be buying one of the other models. Of these, the Life is a bit of a bargain and supplies the affordable German quality driving for an EV that we were hoping when the ID.3 was first launched. But you'll have to decide whether you want the extra features of the other versions, which can add up to £9,000 to the price. What we'd like to see is that 77 kilowatt hour battery allied with dual motors, which VW is planning to launch with a model called the GTX, but that's not until a couple of years' time. That could really give Tesla a run for its money, but by then Tesla will probably have its own hot hatch to compete with it as well. You get front and rear parking sensors and a clear reversing camera. Although the camera isn't included on the entry-level Life version, it is on all the other versions. When the ID.3 first edition came out, the pricing was too close to the Tesla Model 3, but now the rest of the range has arrived, particularly the sub 30k Life edition, the outlook is a lot more interesting. It's great to drive, has plenty of space for passengers and cargo, and even the low-end Life version has lots of luxury features. The ID.3 is definitely a significant release in the EV market and takes the compact electric format to a new level of German quality in a space that Tesla doesn't currently have an offering. Your move, Elon. Thanks for watching, and if you like what you've seen, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to our YouTube channel.